Have you ever felt like you're in a constant battle with your own mind? You decide you're going to focus, but you get distracted. You want to start a new habit, but for some reason you just can't make it stick. Well, today we are going on a journey. We're going to use insights from some of the top neuroscientists out there to learn how to finally take conscious control of the most powerful tool we own, our brain. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to figure out why our brain loves to run on autopilot and why it's so darn hard to focus these days. Then we get into the good stuff, the practical tools. We're talking hacking your focus, literally rewiring your brain for new habits, finding that deep internal drive, and finally putting it all together to truly, and I mean truly, master your mind. So first things first, before we change anything, we have to understand the operating system. And the big secret is this: most of who we think we are, most of what we do every single day is just a bunch of subconscious programs running in the background that we're not even aware of. Let's just start with this staggering number from neuroscientist Dr. Joe Dispenza. Get this, by the time you're 35 years old, 95% of your personality, that's your thoughts, your actions, your emotional reactions, is a subconscious program. 95%. That means for most of our adult lives, we are not living from conscious choice in the present moment. We're just rerunning old code from the past. Think of it like this. Your brain is the hardware, and all your past experiences have installed the software. So you wake up, you think the same thoughts, you make the same choices, you feel the same old emotions. It becomes this predictable, comfortable loop, and it will stay that way, unless you decide to become the programmer and consciously rewrite the code. So where does this programming even come from? Well, check out this simple but super powerful story from Peter Sage. Picture this. A parent, stressed out, dealing with their own stuff, snaps at their kid in a store. You don't deserve it. Now for the parent, it's just a throwaway line, forgotten a second later. But for that child's wide-open, impressionable mind, it hears, "I'm not good enough." And boom, a core belief gets installed, one that can unconsciously drive decades of self-sabotaging behavior. And this is why just using willpower so often feels like pushing a boulder uphill. I love this metaphor. Think of your conscious mind, your goals, your New Year's resolutions, as a tiny, determined ant. It's got about 5% of your brain's processing power. But your unconscious mind, with all those habits, beliefs, and emotions, that's a massive elephant, controlling the other 95%. So if your little ant is marching confidently north, but the elephant is slowly, powerfully wandering south, well, you tell me, who's going to win that one every single time? Okay, so we're already running on this incredibly powerful unconscious programming. Now, let's throw our modern, hyperstimulated, notification-driven world into the mix. What you get is a constant, relentless battle for your attention. Check out this number from researcher Chris Bailey. When we're working in front of a computer, we focus on any one thing for an average of just 40 seconds. 40 seconds! And if you've got a messaging app like Slack open, that number drops to 35 seconds. Our attention isn't just wandering, it's completely shattered. And here is the absolute key insight from all of Bailey's work. The problem isn't just that we get distracted. The real problem, the root cause, is that our brains have become overstimulated. Our minds have been trained to crave novelty, to crave distraction. We get a little hit of dopamine, that pleasure chemical, every time we switch tasks or check our phone. So we're not just being distracted, we're actively seeking distraction. Okay, so that's the problem. It's a big one. So how do we start to fight back? How do we take the controls of our own mind? Well, the first step is to start training our ability to direct our attention, just like you'd strengthen a muscle in the gym. I absolutely love this concept from a former monk named Dandapani. He says, look, your mind is this vast, infinite space, but your awareness is like a glowing ball of light that you can direct. And here's the key. You are not your mind. You are the one who directs that ball of light within your mind. So concentration, it's simply the art of keeping that glowing ball of light on one thing for as long as you want. So how do we practice this? Well, neuroscientist Andrew Huberman offers this incredibly powerful, science-backed tool. It's a super simple 17-minute exercise. All you do is sit quietly and pay attention to your internal state. You're not trying to meditate or clear your mind or do anything fancy. Just notice your breathing, your heartbeat, the feel of your clothes on your skin. And the research on this is just remarkable. They found that a single session can measurably and permanently improve your ability to focus. Now, managing focus in the moment is crucial, But what about building real, lasting change? What about installing new habits that stick? This is where we get into the incredible, almost magical ability of our brain to physically change its own structure. And the core concept here is neuroplasticity. Your brain is not a fixed, static thing. It's more like clay. Every time you learn a new skill or practice a new way of thinking or form a new habit, you are physically creating and strengthening connections between your brain cells. You are quite literally the architect of your own mind. The more you do something, the stronger and more automatic that pathway becomes. So how do we use this superpower effectively? Well, neuroscientist Leela Landowski gives us this fantastic checklist. It's like a recipe. To learn anything well, you need these 6 ingredients. You need full attention. You need to be alert, which, by the way, is why a little exercise before studying is so powerful. Sleep is non-negotiable. It's when your brain files away the day's learning. Repetition, of course, tells your brain, hey, this is important. Keep this connection. Breaks are when the brain actually solidifies the learning in the background. And get this, mistakes are essential. That feeling of frustration when you screw up, that's your brain releasing chemicals that basically scream, pay attention, get ready to learn from this. And here's another pro-level tip to make habits stick, also from Andrew Huberman. It's called task bracketing. He explains that the brain circuits for habits aren't just about the habit itself. They're about the moments right before you start and right after you finish. By consciously focusing on that whole sequence, the beginning, the middle, and the end, and maybe giving yourself a little mental high five at the end, you're telling your brain to wire that entire chunk of behavior to become automatic. Okay, so we have the tools for focus. We have the science for habit change, but all the best techniques in the world are totally useless without the right fuel. And this brings us to motivation. And it turns out the type of motivation you use is way more important than the amount. Rian Doris has this brilliant analogy. He says extrinsic motivation, things from the outside like money, status, or praise from others, is like fossil fuel. Yeah, it gives you a quick burst of energy, but it's dirty, it's unsustainable, and it eventually runs out, leading to burnout. Intrinsic motivation, though, is like fusion energy. It comes from within, from your own curiosity, your sense of purpose, your desire for mastery. It is self-sustaining, incredibly efficient, and it can last a lifetime. So what is this fusion energy made of? Well, it's these 5 core components. There's curiosity, that deep itch to just learn and understand. There's mastery, the drive to just get better at something. Autotelicity, it's a fancy word, but it just means you love doing the thing for its own sake. The action is the reward. Then there's purpose, feeling like you're part of something bigger than yourself. And finally, autonomy, that feeling of control over your life and your choices. When you can align what you do with these motivators, your drive becomes almost unstoppable. This quote from David Goggins just perfectly nails the depth of real intrinsic motivation. It can't be about fleeting desires or what other people think. It has to be something so fundamental to who you are that it can't be burned away by hardship or failure. As he says, it's got to be down to that nice mineral soil at the core of your soul. And that brings us to our final section, where we put all these powerful pieces together. Because mastering your mind isn't really a destination you arrive at. It's about consciously, deliberately creating a new default state, a whole new reality for yourself. And for this, we go back to David Goggins for the ultimate mindset tool. When he's facing some insane challenge, he doesn't just try to get through it. No, he completely redefines his reality. He tells himself, this suffering, this pain, this is my new normal. By making discipline and discomfort your new home, your mind eventually stops fighting it. It adapts, and what was once an impossible state of suffering becomes your new baseline, allowing you to operate at a level you never ever thought was possible. So we have covered a lot, from the unconscious programs that have been running your life to the specific, practical tools you can use to take back control. But in the end, it really all comes down to this. Your brain is the most powerful, sophisticated weapon in the known universe. We've just gone over the user's manual. The only question left is, how are you going to aim it?